Welcome back, friends. I request some of our members can come forward. There are vacant chairs here. You will be comfortable. Instead of plastic chairs here is much more comfortable. Please come forward. Let us move on to our next technical session. In this session, let us understand how to incorporate a company and what are the compliance requirements in that. Let us understand. To enlighten us on this topic, we have invited an energetic and enthusiastic chartered accountant, Sri Lakshmi. Sri Lakshmi P is with us. May I request CA Parmeshwar sir to escort her on to dais and also welcome her with a floral bouquet. Please welcome Sri Lakshmi. Thank you, Parmeshwar sir. Friends, it is my pleasure to introduce Sri Lakshmi to this August gathering. Sri Lakshmi is currently a partner of Guru and Jana, and she is, in addition to CA, she qualified as Company Secretary, MSc Psychology, and Masters and Bachelors of Commerce. She is involved in many other activities, including she is the founder member of CAPS Foundation and also volunteer of Mahatriya Guru and Jana Foundation. She conducts campus placement for BCom students along with the career guidance. She has written articles in self-help magazine, Infinity Thoughts, circulated over 35 countries. She has spoke at ICI on dividends and funding options for NGOs. She is a regular trainer at Toyota for shop floor employees on financial disciplines. She co-authored 3 books published by Guru and Jana. More than that, a fascinating personality, Sri Lakshmi. With this brief introduction, I present her before you. Please join me to welcome once again. Over to Sri Lakshmi.
I was praying that the previous speaker's session goes on for a little longer so that the tea break gets extended. But V.T. Shetty sir made it a point to start it on time. The reason being, incorporation is a very kutty chapter under the Companies Act, and there's not really much technical questions some of us here may have. So I've tried to make this whole presentation a bit interesting, where I have put out the practical issues one might face when they're incorporating a company and how we have resolved it. That is how the whole program has been structured. So I'm Sri Lakshmi. Forget to mention one of my other qualifications, which is I'm also an insolvency professional, so I appeared before the NCLTs. So there's a common reaction always which I get from people. So I'm quite old, but I don't look old in the sense that, so if I'm an IP, it means I have a fair bit of post-qualification experience. So the judge also treats me like I'm Papa, so anything that I argue with him, he'll be like, okay, go, otherwise he's worried that I might stand there and cry. So that always has played to my advantage, and I will also use it to my advantage. So as we told, it is incorporation of companies under the Companies Act 2013 and its compliance. So before I start off, I thank all the office members and of course the audience who are present here today in such large numbers. Frankly, I thought the first 4 rows is what will be filled, but to see that people are walking in continuously is that it's a good number. So this 1.5 hour that we spend together, I'll make sure that it is meaningful for you, and there is some bit of takeaway that you will have. Why is incorporation important? So incorporation, as I told you, is a very small chapter under the Income Tax Act, under the Companies Act. So why we should know about incorporation? So the Make in India is making a lot of waves in the last few years, and the new government is promoting it quite a bit. So who are the top 5 countries who come to India and who are making a difference? And so we as professionals, it is important for us to be able to render the right services for a foreign national who is setting up his shop in the country. So who are the top ones? Of course, USA rules the roost. Out of probably 10 companies that I incorporate, 7 or 8 of them are US subsidiaries in India. It's no surprise that a lot of US subsidiaries set up shop in India because the labor here is cheaper than there are a lot of intelligent people in this country. So that way USA is a very popular hub to set up the country operations. So online search engine to drinking cola, your Google and the colas, we know how popular they are. iPhone to technology companies. So USA that way is quite popular. Come to Japan. Japan has made revolutionary progress in automobiles and electronics sector. I have heard from one of my partners who visited Japan that they made their planes, they made their infrastructure about 100 years back and not much has changed. In that sense, they are way ahead of many countries that we see. And 1300 plus companies in India from Japan are there. And a lot of more are going to come because of the recent India-Japan Cooperation Act East Forum 2017. And some of us in our office also, what we did, we went to Japanese language school and started learning a bit of Japan. So because Japanese clients or Japanese customers, what they do is, they feel more comfortable when they are interacting with someone who knows the language. So it's very easy for you to get business if you are able to speak 1 or 2 words also. Hajime mashite, okari mashita, all those small lines, yoroshiku onegai shimasu, that's all they have to listen and they're sold on you. They will actually buy whatever you sell them. So that's how trusting they are to someone who knows the language. So Japan that way is going to play a big role. UAE, the strong bilateral ties that are in the Middle East has prompted almost $1 billion for National Investment in Infrastructure Fund. And the agricultural sector, there agriculture is not quite so popular. So all the goods that they are going to get into their country, import of food grain and horticulture, they are looking towards India where India can actually supply all of it to them. The German ties, the Indo-German ties is as old as the 16th century. 1600 plus companies are there and over 600 JV companies have set up shop in India. So that way German companies are going to do really well. Your construction of airports for economic cooperation, smart cities, all of that. Your Bengaluru International Airport, a lot of stake is held by the German companies. All these I have got from the source where Make in India, 5 countries that are making big in India. So I didn't have to do much. When I just did this study was already there for me. So I put it in such a way that it is going to help you give a perspective to having other people come to our country to set up shop. Then is the France. 20th year strategic partnership anniversary was celebrated during the 2018 year. So France we always thought was the fashion capital, the Milan, the Paris, everything here. But France you can see are playing a fabulous role in smart cities mission. Your Chandigarh, Nagpur, Puducherry, all loan agreements have been signed and they're building the smart cities. So this is some bit of trivia and they're promoting solar energy. So that way setting up shop in India is important for us to welcome the foreign countries into the country. So what are the applicable laws when someone thinks of incorporation or setting up a company in India? It is Simple Companies Act, your section 3 to section 22. Your company's incorporation rules, rule 1 to rule 41. Your FEMA laws, when it is not a local national or a local director who's setting up shop but a foreign national setting up, then your FEMA laws become important because you have to report the capital coming into the country to the Reserve Bank of India. Some are prior approval, some are post approval. So in the sense you need to have pre-approval before you get the money. But most sectors where basically your software companies and all that, you have to get the money and then report it to RBI. Your trademark and copyright laws are important. Right at the time of starting a company, that is at the time of naming the company itself, you need to check the trademark laws. Most names get rejected due to the trademark clause not being checked by us. So the trademark clause and copyright, it is there as a government portal information itself, where you key in the name and put the class or the article under which what is the business operation of the company, you will be getting that the trademark is already there. And let's say you are incorporating a subsidiary of your own company where you already have a trademark. In that case, you know that you have the necessary permissions and the no objections from the owner who owns the trademark. The new thing that has come about is your DPIIT and the income tax, which is basically your startup recognition which the government is giving to companies which have been incorporated post 1/4/2016. So post 1/4/2016, the companies which are born can get the startup exemption certificate. It's very simple. You are required to follow 10 steps. Get the information from the client. Out of the 10 information that you need to give, 4 you will only know. 6 you need to ask the client to give that to you. Basically it will be like, what is your unique IP because of the business you are doing? Are you creating economic wealth, or are you creating more employment? So those sort of 6 questions are there. You get all those details from the client himself and fill it up for him, and then you get a startup recognition certificate. And the government is so robust that this startup recognition certificate is coming to you in as less as 24 hours. So they scrutinize your applications and immediately give out the recognition certificate also. And the helpline is really good. You can reach out to them anytime and they'll clarify any questions that you might have. And the startup recognition is recognized in such a way that you might be sitting and wondering here, how is startup relevant when we are actually thinking of incorporation? This is a value add we can do to a client where we tell him that if you apply for a startup recognition, then subsequently get an income tax exemption. For 3 years you can exempt your profits if you get the recognition from the government. And close to 15,000 companies have actually already got the startup exemption from the government. That recognition certificate has already been received. Labor laws. So the labor laws for each state, several labor laws are applicable, and those labor laws also a client is supposed to be guided and told about on what he has to do for incorporating the company. The approving authority for all this is your CRC. CRC is the centralized registration center where all incorporation applications go to the CRC. Prior to CRC being introduced, we had to actually go and stand in the ROC offices and beg him for giving a name approval, and that used to take days and months together. I read an internal ministry circular which is a notification for the CRC that they are supposed to approve the company in D+1 days, D+2 days. I have seen names being approved in 2 hours of us filing the run tool. So it is that fast today, and incorporating a company is becoming easier and faster. We wrote a blog when such changes happened in the country. India we lost but India gained. What do we mean by that? See, earlier I could charge a client ₹1,00,000, ₹1,50,000, package the whole thing as a big incorporation activity, telling him it would take 45 to 60 days and charge a lot of money. But today, since the government is making it easier for us to incorporate, it would make a lot of sense to pass on that benefit to a client when we are incorporated for him and be very competitive in that aspect. So, gone are the days when it used to take a lot of time. Still people face certain practical challenges when we have to incorporate for foreign national, but it is relatively easier compared to the earlier time because of the CRC where they are processing the applications faster and you don't have to go and visit the local ROC and please him. This is a small trivia for you. Many of you here might be sitting knowing this fact, but for me I didn't know it. I was trying to understand the history of the company laws, and it said 1850 was the first time when the law was introduced. These are the before independence era, where it lasted for about 32 years, then about 3 decades, then 24 years, then 20 years. The longest living law, however, was still the 1956 law. 1956 law became the 2013 law, and we had doubts or we had confusions. After we unlearned whatever we had all learned and then learned the new law, again there were rumors telling because of this 2013 law where they are bringing in a lot of requirements on too many compliances, they were telling no, let's keep this law aside, let's bring the old law back. So I don't even know that for how many years this will be, we'll have to see as we go by in that sense. Ease of doing business, so too much has been said and done, and we are seeing in result also where India stands today. India stands at 63 compared to the lowest at one point in time where we were 142. Today the ease of doing business is at 63 number. So any guesses on how many companies are there in India?
We are chartered accountants, we don't see any ease of doing this. We just put a graph, that's all.
Yeah, but still I can tell you how it is easy.
Here, what is ease of business? And CA will tell you what is ease of business in this country.
I totally understand.
No, they are asking about disease of doing away with business.
Yeah, it is actually the risk of doing business today in India.
I cannot, sir has rightly said it's a lot of risk of doing business because this government has aggressively promoted a lot of compliances and not seen what are the repercussions of it. So probably that will also be channelized and that will be brought to some shape. But in the sense of incorporation, at least I can tell you that the things are moving faster because we incorporate at least 5 companies a month and the speed at which we are able to move is quite a lot. The fees here you can see for a company with let's say 15 lakh paid up share capital in India is still one of the lowest and all the other countries you can see are quite a lot. So I can tell that this is one of the benefits that a client gets when he sets up his company. The incorporation timelines, of course, India is the longest. It's the longest still compared to all the companies, but we are somewhere averaging about 18 days when we can get a company incorporated. So these are some of the initiatives that have been introduced. There is a ministry circular or a notification in the MCA website itself which tells what are the simple things that the government has done to make it easier for us to incorporate. CRC has been introduced. SPICE is a single form where all the details can be put and you can get a whole lot of things like PAN, TAN can be generated, GST can be generated, your DIN can be generated through the incorporation form itself, then the name also can be approved through the incorporation form. So a lot of steps have been done away with where one single form you can file and you can make sure that your company is incorporated. Then for RUN, there is no requirement of a DSC. Earlier, if you had to apply for name, you had to make sure that you had a DSC of the director. But now what you can do is apply for RUN and while the name is being approved, get a DSC for your director to file the incorporation form. Zero fee up to 15 lakhs capital. There is only a declaration now and an affidavit has been done away with. Affidavit requires you to notarize, stamp and there is a procedure for that. Instead, a declaration where in the form itself you can actually tick that you are declaring so and so is okay, then the declaration itself is helping you here. Then the incorporation 5th amendment rules simplify processes further. So we introduced the incorporation, the new law came about in 2014 and from then to now, 5 times already the incorporation law has changed. Which means to say that the government is trying to look at how to ease things for a business and unfortunately what has happened is they put everything under the law. The act requires the upper house, lower house to approve the changes and to bring about changes it was taking a lot of time. But they said the rules are going to help you to make it move faster and the rules are going to be amended for you to follow certain laws. But if I went back and saw how many times the rule has been amended from that rules were introduced, a whopping 150 times actually the rules have changed. So I know, so I can understand when we are telling it's risk, non-ease and all that, but still we can see that it is all towards a good objective.
The entry is becoming easy. Sustaining and exit is becoming complicated.
Yeah, sustaining exit. So maybe the chartered accountants should not complain because we are still getting our money.
We are the people to complain to the government, it's not going to work.
the first people to complain if it's a problem. Sustaining the business with this kind of a difficulty is very
Yeah, this is what we are.
Totally understand, but at the same time you don't have a choice. Had we a choice and it made sense for us to complain, then I would also be the loudest person to sit and complain. Yeah, absolutely. But complaint doesn't
All
have...
governments are planning to stop the practice itself. Because the risk is more. I
But-
think after many years.
So people are planning to stop practice, but what next? If we had something else, probably all of us would have done that too.
Compliance are increasing day by day.
That is, we totally agree.
A business person should only sit down doing the compliance. That is what the
I absolutely agree. My topic is on incorporation and in incorporation, I will totally tell you what I can help you on. So I absolutely agree and I'll probably give you a mic at 15 minutes before I will stop my session and then all of us could probably sit and talk. So let me come to a client's concern. This is practically what we have done and we have seen how it has helped the client. We call it something as the umbrella policy. Why did we think of this idea? A client, as everybody has here been pointing out, has a lot of headaches, and so does the chartered accountant. What does the client do? They go to a law firm, they have to work with an IDT practitioner, they have to go to a firm for valuation, they have to do accounting, they have to do corporate law. So he'll be like sad, no, oh yes, I don't know what to do. So this is really the fate of, I think, okay, a chartered accountant today, in him to guide a client also. So fate of a client also in that sense, where today for everyone it is becoming quite challenging to do business. But we as professionals, what we can do is to make it easy for a client who actually comes to a chartered accountant, elated, he'll get up excited that day morning telling today, yeah, I'm going to my chartered accountant. We are like doctors. Only when there is a pain, they will think of us, they'll come to us. So we are like those painkillers only. Only when people need us, we come to us. They come to us. So it is becoming increasingly important for us to make sure at least the client is given a little peace of mind when he comes to a chartered accountant. What we have done or what we can do, all of us sitting here, some of us who have newly started practice or some of us who have already been in the system, and maybe for the newly practicing kids like the fresh chartered accountants who are aspiring to do practice on their own, they can build a network of their friends where each one will have an expertise, knowledge, and we can work independently with them where we are the face for the client, but we get the work done from a lot of them. But today in our firm, we built this over a period of time. It took us a lot of years for us to build the internal specialization that we all could do, like IBC law, your company law, then GST, advisory structures, India entry valuation, direct taxes, in that indirect. All of that we have built. And today audit also, we don't simply talk audit. There is statutory audit, there is internal audit, there is forensic audit. So a whole lot of things are applicable for a client. In that sense, we either build the expertise in-house within our own firm, or we could partner with networks where we find our friends or we find certain experienced chartered accountants. Today a lot of chartered accountants that way can give business to each other. Where one client comes, you know, he has to comply with 15 laws, 50 laws, whatever it is, you see how best you can do. A classic example here that me as a professional transitioned in my own CA career is I started in DMR Advisors where I was looking at GST. GST was then very newly introduced, where the white paper and everything was coming out, so service tax, my litigations, everything, that is where I started handling. And then I moved into a different line where I looked into a bit of audit and accounts. Then finally I realized that somebody was required in the corporate governance space, which is basically your spirit and letter of the law, where secretarial practice also took a lot of importance. And then I realized payroll, and then I realized HR. So today I look into corporate law, HR and payroll in the firm. So I've forgotten to be a chartered accountant in that real sense of numbers and everything. But I do a lot of work which is related to the practice that we all follow. What about HR practice? So I head the HR team in my office, and I realized when a lot of clients come to India, they don't have somebody who can help them with the offer letters. And for them to full-fledged hire a HR person will cost them about 25 to 30,000, which actually is what probably is the fee they were monthly paying to a CA for their accounting practice. So what we can do there is, it's simple. You have to get some formats under the law, get it vetted by a lawyer, you have your standard set, get the company's main offer letters which are in the US, customize it as per their requirement in India and give it to them. So this can be a simple thing which is about 5 to 6,000 rupees a month which you can charge them. For you, with this one set of documents you have, you can replicate it for several other clients. So I'm telling you, as we go by, we have evolved this practice. So this is something you all can actually think of also. The first question mark, however, when someone comes to you is now to ask a client, does he really need a company? Or simply that it is his ego-fulfilling satisfaction that he wants to be a managing director in some company and he tells you, oh, I get this MD tag, that's why I want to do a company. Most of them don't even know what's a partnership firm and what is a company. They will tell, I have my own company. And then you think that it's a partnership firm. Or it's a simple sole proprietorship also, they will tell that it is like a company. So they don't even know that way in the sense a difference. But for us, we have to educate a client, understand his business first. Not that we are getting money from getting him an incorporation. That is the easier thing and that is the faster thing to do. But really go understand the crux of it and find out from him why he wants to start a company. This, it is important for us to position really well. First, when we all start up, as a CA lawyer, as a company secretary, we know the process really well. So we start the incorporation for him and we give it to him. That is a simple job. Next comes where we draft certain requirements, where we draft certain documents for the client, where we customize his needs. At the time of incorporation itself, understand from him whether he is going to get external investors into the company. So try and classify the capital clause as equity and preference at the time of incorporation itself. A lot of clients come to us where their idea has already been sold to a VC and a VC has told them, please now set up your company, I am willing to do business with you. Those situations, then they already have a capital clause in place, a term sheet, a shareholders agreement draft in place. That time itself you can add value and get everything as a part of your incorporation itself. The last part of where we should all reach to is be a trustee for a client. How a trustee for a client is, we will have to make sure that we partner with him in his growth. We should only tell him that you come to us and we will take care of everything. Of course, I am telling you, make the expectations clear here, not that even his check is bounced, he calls you up and asks you, go get the check from the bank. So those, not to that extent of a minute thing I am saying, but overall, for a client, we should be like their trustees where they absolutely think of us as the first person when they are in some kind of a trouble. Important is to make the client understand that he is getting married. It's not that a newborn baby is given on his lap, which is actually for the rest of his life he is a parent to that company. He should be made aware that there is a lot of compliances that they are required to do. What we do is we give a whole lot of activity chart. We tell in the first month of incorporation, this is all you are required to take care. Then we give him a monthly breakup, a quarterly breakup, a half-yearly breakup, then a yearly breakup where we tell what all is applicable for the client and he should be aware of that. If he is willing to take care of a white elephant for the rest of his life, for as long as the company is willing to go on, then it makes sense for him to get a company. So today we are seeing a lot of cases where the directors, where they are given liability guarantees, they are held liable for a lot of things. So gone are the days where you could set up shop, then run away without being found by anybody and you are absconding, your company gets struck off. So that really today is not the case. So in the previous speaker he was talking about disqualification, he was talking of shell companies. So that way so many things have happened. So today a company, if you are married for life. You either agree to get married or you agree to stay single. Choose. This is something that when we showcase to a client, we have to make sure that we tell them these are the lot of things that you are required to do. I have had clients fight with me telling you are charging about 75,000 rupees and there is someone who is charging 5,000 rupees. I myself cannot justify why I should pay you so much when there is an online service provider who is going to render services for such a lesser amount. I never talk to a client about fees. I tell him keep your fee aside, talk about the value I can bring to the table, talk about the experience that we have and the expertise that we have in rendering services. And incorporation that way is extremely crucial because a client is coming to you at the stage of incorporation. And when you make sure that your fees is set right at the stage of incorporation itself, you know that you are going to be able to get the same fees out of him when you are rendering much more services for him. So you have to showcase it that incorporation is not just one incorporation activity. There are 18 steps, 19 steps, 20 steps which you are required to do, and incorporation today is not just a 15-day activity. It is going to go on for about 3 months after you have incorporated the company also. So this is something like a package you can sell to them and tell them and make them understand. So sit with the client, deliberate with him, take him through. Some people will be impatient, some people will be willing to hear you out. So depending on what the client is willing to do, make sure that you explain to them. So DSC, all of us know, DIN, we know, name approval, and today DSC management has become a nightmare. We have probably 200 directors who are there on the boards of the company, and to hold 200 directors, probably we have to rent another place to hold those DSCs. So what we have done, we have built an internal tool where somebody has to access the DSC means they raise a request telling DIR3 certification, DSC of so and so of this company is required. And that request comes and sits with the person to whom they are reporting. And the person to whom he is getting reporting to, he has to approve that the DSC is okay to be used. But otherwise, you have seen a lot of them use the DSCs without the permission of the client or of the chartered accountant or their bosses, and they file the forms. And that time the client will come back to you telling he gets an MC approval mail and tells what are you doing, what are you doing with my DSC. So that way you should educate the client. This is where I am telling today education to a client is very important. So through this DSC portal, what we have done, we've listed all the DSCs that are available with us. When a client wants to take back his DSC, we put that request there so that tomorrow when someone loses a DSC and it is at actually the client office, they should not tell us that you are the one who is holding the DSC, you should have taken care of it. So,
Is it legal to use somebody else's CSC while signing a document?
so I am not sure of that, but it belongs.
ICA said you can't do that at all because it's illegal.
But practically today,
Practically not possible. That's what the seminar speaker said. He's an expert in the IT field. It's illegal to use somebody else's CSC even if you are doing it.
so today what are you doing, sir?
No, that's the reality I'm saying. But that's a mistake we're all doing.
But what we have at least done, we make sure to use it with the permission of the client or give a team viewer access. So you think of a problem, then think of a solution on how you can streamline the entire thing. So today, without permission of the CA whose DSC is being used and the client's DSC being used, we do not move ahead. So then comes your name approval, then the SPICE form, comes the certificate of incorporation, PAN tag comes. E-PAN is being issued, but a lot of them still insist on the PAN card copy. Make sure the moment E-PAN is received, you file for a rectification of PAN, where the actual PAN card comes and sits with you. The bankers are still accepting that because the bankers have to open the bank account, and that's the first step. E-PAN give to the banker, but parallelly go ahead and get the E-PAN, the PAN card for the company. Do not miss out on this step. TAN letter comes to you, the GST also you can file. INC 22 is your situation of registered office. At the time of incorporation itself, you can give the registered office. So there is a button where this is a correspondence address or a registered office. For filing a registered office, there are certain proof documents you need to give. If you don't do that, then file the correspondence address directly and later file the address form.
PAN card doesn't come to us at the time of filing.
PAN card doesn't come with just the SPICE form.
Okay, then we get the mail.
We get the mail and the e-PAN card.
Yeah, then we have to apply for a card again.
Yeah, you have to apply for it through a rectification of name, which is not the actual PAN card, where the rectification form is there. Through that you can get your PAN card. That is, even I didn't know, I incorporated 3 companies without knowing, and I was waiting for the PAN card to come. But it never came, and when we called the NSDL authorities, they said you have to apply for rectification, and that's how you get your PAN card. First board meeting, many of us missed to educate a client on this, because in the first board meeting, the auditor gets appointed, your bank resolutions get passed, your statutory registration resolutions get passed. All this, it's important that way for a client to be told and get the auditor's consent right at the time of filing for first auditor itself. Share certificates, all of my clients who have come to me where we are doing some activity and then we go back and do a health check of their secretarial records, we find that unanimously nobody has a share certificate. So that way it is important for us to create the share certificates for the client, then do the stamping for it and give it to him, because the stamping has to be done within 60 days of the incorporation. So there you have to make sure you're meeting all the timelines. Otherwise you go into one more loop where you do duplicate certificates and those sort of things. So share certificates required, stamping required. We also make sure to get the client a stationery and seal. So we have tied up with a vendor where the vendor only is going to coordinate with the client. We just have to facilitate it to happen. So again, the client doesn't bother me telling, banker is asking me for a seal. I haven't received the seal. What do I do? Can I order one? So we have made sure that we built it into the process. Bank account also. Today a client comes to me and asks which banker to choose. I raise my hands up and I tell, you tell me whom you want to work with. I will work with that banker, because the bankers are actually very bad in the sense that choosing between the deep sea and the devil. Half the time the bankers don't know, they've still kept the 1956 formats of the board resolution. They have still not, they don't know that the secretarial standard number should be a part of your board resolution. So your bankers are so bad that way. And especially having a foreign client and incorporating and opening a bank account for a wholly owned subsidiary in India is a true nightmare. You probably can incorporate a company faster than opening a bank account. So that's how bad your banks are. So when I have burned my hands by referring bankers, their client has left me because I referred him a banker. So today I don't take the risk. I make sure to ask the client, tell me who you want to work with. I will definitely make it a point to work with a banker and make it easier for you. Statutory register. So to showcase to a client you're doing a lot of work, your statutory register is about 12 to 14 pages in the Excel sheet. You prepare it for him and give it to him. See, I've prepared the statutory register for you. Then beneficial and registered owner under law. Now, this is a very important point which I'll touch on in my issues a bit later. And startup recognition, I already told you. Addresses and directors. A few of chartered accountants who I know have given their names at the time of incorporating the company to make it easier for a client. And because today a resident director is mandatory, and when a foreign company is setting up his office in India, it is difficult that way for us to find a local person who is going to be a director. So we volunteered to do it. But one of my other friends that day was held back at the airport telling the company in which he had given his name long back, he had not figured out, and then his visa was not approved or something like that. So there are issues practically today, and we have seen the monthly developers case where the director was held back in the airport and not let go. So today for the directors the consequences are quite a lot. You are okay to probably give your name and make sure you come out of it also right royally and without a worry. Addresses also people struggle because in US today it's the PO box and you can have an office with the PO box itself. For us, we have to have the rental agreement, we need to have the NOC, we need to have the utility bill. All those things, make sure you get it properly, and if you're giving your office, make sure that you're collecting a good amount of rent if you do that also. What are your relevant forms? Your run tool is there, Agile, Spice, EMOA, EOA. This is common, we know this. So at the time of approving name, I have faced some practical issues when I have filed for a name. We'll take it one at a time. So 2 name options are given. So at a time you can file only for 2 names. 1 chance of resubmission is there and 15 days is given for you. The object should be very comprehensive and cover the main objects with limited character space. Because the box that you have is limited, we cannot write the history, we cannot plan to write the Mahabharata and all that and that. We have to make sure that we give in a few crisp sentences what the company does. If subsidiary of a parent company, then in that same box itself you need to mention that. Do not forget what the objects you have given are, save it. I have once given an object and then when I have tried to file the incorporation, I have not given the same words in the main objects in the incorporation. So ROC, the CRC put it up for resubmission and told me whatever was in your run objects, put it. So I had no clue what I had put and then I had to rack my brains and somehow figured out what I did. But make sure when you file the run tool, because it's not a PDF form and it's just like a Google document where you fill all the forms and submit, upload, you save that objects what you have filed for the incorporation. There's no requirement of a DSC. Attachments can be a trademark related or parent company board resolution. In the run tool itself, there is one option where you have to give an attachment, make sure you attach that. How many days is the name available? It's for 20 days. Then the trademark, domain search, everything is given to you in the portal itself where you can find out whether there is already a trademark such as that. What are the documents to be attached to incorporation? Still a host of things. One, a declaration by a professional, declaration by first directors and subscribers. Self-declaration today is inbuilt in the form as I already told you. Registered office.
Notarized now. Nowadays, notarized not required.
They made it a declaration instead of an affidavit. Then proof documents of directors and subscribers, very critical. If I have some points on this, I'll touch on that later. Practicals of interest, particulars of interest and consent. So if a director is actually an interested party or he is sitting on the board of other companies, you are required to give that list here itself. In case it's a wholly owned subsidiary, we have to give a board resolution, all the parent company and details to follow. Your MON, AOA has to be given. What I have done now, today we are going to touch on the issues which I already told you we will be covering. What are the issues? Each clause wise I have given the issues. So in terms of name, today India has 1.9 million companies. So if I have to get a unique name, I truly have to be unique in that sense. So in the rules itself, there are certain naming conventions which are given to you on how your name should be and should not be. It's quite interesting for us to see. We'll quickly run through this. What are your resembling names? If a company has private, PVT, PVT dot, bracket P, all of it is the same. Then OPC,
I understand only private, you have right fully.
we have to write it fully, that is right.
ET and all that.
No, it's not allowed, legal not allowed.
It is not allowed, but if you are trying to get variations of this, you will not get it also. And this illustration, interestingly, is given in the rule itself, incorporation rule itself.
Not only in incorporation, even in general practice, writing a name, of course, for
Ease of
usage you can use it, but legally it's not right.
Correct. So what sir is saying is we cannot give PVT dot or bracket P today. We have to make sure that we have to use it as private only. IFSC Limited, again the same thing is there. So company and company corporation, all of this is the same. So if you have variations of this, they will not allow for your name to be approved. The plural and singular form. So plural or singular form of words in one or both names. So Green Technology Limited is the same as Greens Technology Limited or Greens Technologies Limited. So we cannot have the plural or singular variations. Pratap Technology is same as Prataps and Technologies. What they are saying is not same as SM Computers Limited is not same as SMS Computers Limited. So that they are saying we'll allow. Another issue we can face here is your type and case of letters, spacing between the letters, punctuation marks and special characters used in one or both names. So if I have a ABC Limited, I cannot have a A.B.C. If there is a Teamwork Limited, I cannot have team at work and team-work. So because there is already a teamwork, any variations of any special characters I put in between the names is not going to be allowed. Use of different tenses in one or both names. So past, present, future we can think and then we can put, but if there is already one company existing such that they will not give. Your ascend is same as ascended and ascending also. Your speak English is same as spoken English also. So make sure that there are no pre-past. So when you do a name search, you can probably check when it is something like an ascend or some noun you are using where you can come up with past, present and future tenses. Use of phonetic spellings including use of misspelled words of an expression. So your TECH is same as TEC, TEK and your CHEM is same as KEM and KEM here. So I have so often not been able to convince a client at all why he cannot get this. Client will tell how is it same, I am telling him it's similar sounding, he is telling no it is not the same. You have to make sure to get an approval on this. I have failed and there is no answer that I can give to him also.
Also have clients who go in numerology.
Clients who are?
Who go in numerology.
Numerology, yeah, that is another scary thing. So of course for them it's their baby and they want to make sure that this Muhurat only I incorporate. Somebody didn't let me incorporate in Ashad Masa, they made me wait till Diwali. So all those things have happened for me. They tell, see, I don't believe it, but my parents are telling me. So it's you are required to follow certain things, and rightly numerology is an important part for a client because it's a name, you will live with it for the rest of your life. So you might as well get what you like. Then BK is so many variations of BK is there. So I can't even spend time to do that. The use of host names such as www or a domain extension such as .net, .org, .com in one or both the names. So your Ultra Solutions Limited is the same as ultrasolutions.com Limited. But if you want a Supreme Ultra Solutions but an ultrasolutions.com, that is allowed. So existing name you take and you add any .net, .com, you will not get. But you do a variation of the name where you put the first before the second after and have a .com, that is allowed. So any variations will be given to you only if you do not have an existing name as such. The order of the words. So Ravi Builders and Contractors is same as Ravi Contractors and Builders Limited. But it's not the same as Ravi Shankar Builders and Contractors Limited. So these are illustrations for you to make sure that your naming becomes easier. Use of a definite or indefinite article. So one client, LLP, he made me apply for it 5 times with 5 rejections. Because his daughter's name was Ananya Nivatia, he wanted and as a company name, come what may. I tried to explain it so many times to him. sir, and is already a trademark under the particular clause that you wanted. There is no way I can get it for you. Finally, succumbed after spending money for 5 forms, because LLP name approval is only 200 rupees. For him it was okay, and 5 times we tried. Before I filed only, I knew that it was not going to be approved. But, so that way make sure that it is not a very common one, and your articles, the, and all that, you can't prefix before an existing name and get the approval for you. Congenial tools is the same as a congenial or the congenial, but Isha is not the same as Anisha, that we all know. So no confusion there. A slight variation in the spelling of the 2 names, including a grammatical variation thereof. So your America spells it as C-O-L-O-R, but we spell it as C-O-L-O-U-R. In that sense, we will not get color or color to be approved when there is already a same company. So DISC, D-I-S-C is same as D-I-S-K, but it's not the same as DISCO. So thankfully all of us know so much English where we can differentiate. Complete translation or transliteration not possible. What do we mean here? National Electricity Corporation is same as Rashtriya Vidyut Nigam. See, even when you are applying a name, you will not know there is a Hindi version or a Latin version of it. So it's up to the CRC to reject the name what you filed, and then you come or you realize, okay, there is already something like this, and make the client understand. High construction is not the same as high nirman. So it is applicable for vernacular languages also, yes. Rashtriya Ispat Nigam. That is what I am not sure. So Oriya, they might not know the meaning of it and they might approve it. So that is possible. Addition of the name of a place to an existing name which does not contain the name of the place. So interesting here to know is Retro Pharmaceuticals Ranchi is already there, and you want the Retro Pharmaceuticals Chennai, you will get it. But if there is already a Salvage Technologies and you want to add a Delhi to it, you will not get it. So this probably when the person who incorporated the company didn't know that he's going to open it in so many states and have so many GVs, so he's got to live with it. Or probably he has to change his existing name and come back to give a new name. I don't know how that will work. Addition, deletion or modification of numerals or expressions denoting numerals in an existing name unless the numeral represents any band. So Thunder Services is the same as Thunder 11. Style Governance 11 is the same as 11 or 12, whatever you want to give. So make sure that the numbering that way is a little difficult. 111 power equipment is not the same as 1 power equipment. Descriptive names. I have seen one board of a company in Jayanagar which says, I went back and saw their master data also. It was a company which was incorporated in 1980. It said Builders and Contractors Private Limited. Today, if you have to get such a name, it is highly impossible. Like your Silk Manufacturers Limited, your Manufacturers Silk Limited, those type of names are very hard to come by today. When earlier there were not too many companies where they had the names, they have given those names very easily, and they have probably given the same name to another company also and then realized and gone back and changed. Today it's all online, so you can check whether there is a name already existing. Earlier that mechanism was not there. Name includes name of a foreign country or a city. What do we mean that is like India Limited, Japan Limited? If you have a parent and you want to incorporate it with the same name and with the country in which they are there, then make sure to go ahead and give it. Certain undesirable names, still we are not allowed to use the British India, certain emblems. There are certain restricted words which are not allowed under the law. There are certain words which the central government allows for you with prior approval, like a board or a commission. If you want to get those names, you have to first get the central government approval, and then with that approval file the name, you will be able to get those names. So naming convention we are done. Now comes the objects clause.
Name, suppose if you got an LLP, is it mandatory that we should use the same name for when we convert into a private limited company?
Yes, that is mandatory. Sir's question is, if there is an LLP already with an existing name and you convert to a company, should we use the same name as the LLP? Yes, that is mandatory. And when I am a company and I want to convert to a LLP, same name I have to use and keep it as a LLP. So both that is clear. Objects clause in the MOA. What is the objects clause filed in incorporation form has to match with what has been filed in run. I already told this point to you earlier. So if we have filed the name, we have filed for the name and we have forgotten what are the objects, and even when we called the help desk, they did not help us with what we had filed. So going forward, we should make sure we have saved it.
But the run field is limited actually.
Very limited. Yeah, you can give. I have given an example here. Yes. So one of the cases what we had given, the company had given me exact objects what he wanted. He had said manufacture medical device such as so and so, but what I had put to carry on business of formulation of medicines, drugs, mixtures, capsules, all of this. This I had put it as the main object, point 2. But they said what I had put in run object itself has to be the first point. Then this I could include it as the third point. So they are a little specific about it and finicky about it before they approve for us. We have to make sure we know what we have.
Any limitation number of objects you can put now?
3 objects is what they have been approving for us in the main objects. Earlier you could put 7, 10 or 8. Today 3 only is what we can restrict it to. Then the ancillary objects should be incidental to the main objects. So in one of the instances what had happened was the company was actually into electronics, which was basically headphones and all that. And one of the last points in my memorandum on the 44th or 45th point had film making. So I don't know, it was probably something that I missed. So they had read all of that and they pulled out 5 clauses from what I had submitted to them and told me you have to remove 44 to 49 and make sure it's because it is not in consonance with the main objects. So when we file the incorporation documents, we have to make sure that it is in order. This is also important. I thought actually industrial activity code is something very silly and they won't see it. But I have had them come for resubmission when the industrial code was not given correctly. Why? How does an industrial code play a difference to them? Because the government prepares statistics based on this industrial code. So they are very particular about what code we give. And my audit team had come back to me telling, see, this company is actually into this particular code or this particular field of activity, but their main incorporation, whatever I've done, is done with a different industrial code. What do I do? I did not have an answer, so I said you just have to live with it at this moment and somewhere make a note that this company's main objects and industrial code is not matching with what today the company is doing. If possible, go back and amend the memorandum. But the fact of the matter was that the industrial code that they had put in the incorporation was wrong. The capital clause. For a foreign company, subscription shares for board resolution from parent company should match the details in incorporation form. I have an example here. What had happened in one of the practical cases that we took up is, this is the extract from the parent company board resolution. So resolved that the executive board is authorized to make an initial investment of ₹1,00,000 for the proposed subsidiary. We know that we require 2 shareholders for a company to incorporate in India. In this case, what we had done, the parent company we had told, we will put 1 lakh here. But when I had filed the incorporation form in the memorandum subscribers, I had given 9,999 shares for the parent company and 1 share for a single shareholder. And it was all apostille, notarized, the parent company board resolution, everything, all that notary had to be done, all that was completed. So I was so panicked because for me to go back to a client and tell him I have to amend the board resolution, not possible. So what we did instead was in the incorporation form, we made ₹1,00,000 against the main parent company and ₹10 against the one more single shareholder, and it became a ₹1,10,000 company. But today what we are doing, we are making sure that we put it like this. So the number of shares 9,999 we write here only, and who is the other single shareholder also, we make sure to write it. Another issue that we have faced is trademark related. So I told you verification on the MCA portal is a mandate. How where it is found is here. So in the MCA services, if you go, there is a public search of trademark. Go here and get it and search whether there is a trademark or not. So if the trademark has a there is somebody already holding a trademark, then go get a NOC from the trademark holder, get a board resolution from the company who holds the trademark, and make sure you get the KYC of the signatory, that is the PAN of the trademark holder. Also they have insisted for us to ask that whether this person is actually an authentic person or not. It is not that you can simply sign somebody else's document and give an NOC, it has to be a proper document. Another issue, so wherever we have DINs to file for incorporation and get the approval is faster as opposed to someone who doesn't have a DIN. Not having a DIN, what are the practical issues they will face is, the address in the form should match the MOA, AOA, DIR2. All of it has to be a copy paste of the same address. And make sure when you are filling the addresses itself, you have the proof documents of the director with you, and then make sure to actually really type that out. You probably will give a data sheet to a client. He will fill it for you and he will give it back. He will give his address which he is very commonly familiar with, but his proof document will have something. So I prepare all the documents, I actually take all signatures, and then when I actually really get his hard copy proof of the address, it is something else. So make sure word by word you match whatever you file in the form and whatever is given in all the declarations. And the utility bill should not be older than 2 months. So our documents received from subsidiaries of the parent company will have a date reading wrongly. So one article in my office came running to me, she was panic telling they have already gotten notarized all the documents. It is January 2019 bill while we are supposed to get a not older than 2 months bill. She had read the date wrongly, it was actually 11 November bill, it was actually reading the date wrongly. So we should know that we read dates correctly when we get your foreign documents, and confirm, make sure to tell the client it should not be older than 2 months. So basically what you are supposed to give to your MCA, other than all the details which are there in your Kundli, except your Kundli you are supposed to give to them. What is that? Your name, a recent photo scanned, then father or mother's name, nationality, date of birth and place of birth, and this permanent and present address for how long you have stayed, educational qualification, occupation, email ID and phone number, ID proof. Gone are the days when you could give your number and your email ID. Please never ever do that, and also tell a client that he should have a generic ID where all the government correspondences are received. Because when it's a single person who is handling all that, there tend to be misses. So we ask a client to create a generic ID, and that ID they will probably give us access so that we are able to figure out what all mails are being received from them. And today with your number you cannot hold several DSCs. So DSC number is very unique to the person to whose mobile number has been given. So even if it's a foreigner, even if it's a local national, make sure to get his own number and fill his own number and get him to sign on his details and get him to verify that those details are correct. Any document you prepare, make sure to send it to him, get his approval that it is correct, and then only move ahead.
Now, how do you handle the DOC of the foreign director?
DSC of a foreign director will be with the companies most of the times. The local presence of the directors. Some directors I have seen are educated and they take it back with them also. Some who keep it, give us team viewer access, and we sign the documents for them so that they can put the password. We facilitate the form and signing for them.
And the documents to be notarized, or the documents to be notarized, or the details in the
That is mandatory, yes. There is no option. So on the notary and the apostille, I have a certain few points which the rule clearly states. Even today, a lot of them are confused on what has to be done on a notary and apostille process. So for foreign nationals, PAN is mandatory. For an Indian national, PAN card is mandatory. Passport here and then PAN card there. So if the subscriber is already a director or a promoter, get the name of the company in which he is, then the SIN and the interest. If the subscriber is a body corporate, we need to get all these details. So this CIN and GLN, most of them will not know how to give it. One, there is an option where you can pre-fill that, or you can go back to the legal of the foreign country and get that number and you can fill it. So sometimes it is probably not a mandatory field, or sometimes it is a mandatory field, but you make sure to get this SIN of the foreign entity also. If subscriber is a body corporate, we already saw. Attached board resolution of the foreign body corporate. So two scenarios here. One, the board resolution is passed in the parent country. That is, if it's a US company, in US they have passed the board resolution, as opposed to all the directors were in India at the time of passing the board resolution. So if they were in US when they have passed the board resolution, then there is no concern on your business visa and all of that. You just have to get the notary done and the apostille done. Here when there is a meeting in India, details of all members present in the meeting should be given. Practically, I have had these questions from the CRC when I have submitted telling give me all these details. So details of members present should be given, valid business visa and passport of all members, and they also asked me for an authorization from the parent company that they are allowed to hold a meeting in India. So it's not that the persons here have simply gone ahead and done the resolution. Instead, go and get the resolution and an authorization from the parent company to pass the resolution here. Meeting in a foreign country means all documents have to be notarized and apostilled. So 16(2)(f), one of the important points, I'll read it out for you because this is a common point which comes in all the resubmissions which you have seen. If the body corporate is a company, then certified true copy of the board resolution specifying the authorization to subscribe to memorandum. So I already showed you a draft of the resolution earlier. So with that draft, interesting thing I came to know very recently is that the board resolution of the parent company actually need not be apostille. They are telling that a certified true copy of the board resolution is what they require. Because a client practically raised an issue for me telling there are 3 directors in this company and for him to pass a resolution, one director was a Lebanese, one director was from the Middle East, one director was an Indian. And this board resolution, you have to actually take it in all the countries to be physically present in front of him as a notary and then get the documents authenticated. So practically it was not possible. Then when I went back and did a clear reading of the law, this is what it's told. But I have had several instances where the CRC has come back to me telling your COI and your board resolution has to be mandatorily apostilled and notarized. So in those instances we still did something and got the notary and apostille, but practically there is an issue. Yes sir.
See, what we can do is alternatively, so many companies have got words called what it means legal entity identifier numbers.
Correct.
It can be used in all these unnecessary notices to be eliminated.
So what sir is telling, they will have an ultimate legal entity, get a resolution from them and you can do away with several countries of notary routing which you are supposed to do.
I have a question on the wholly owned subsidiary. You touched upon it a few slides back.
Huh?
So you said you give 1 share to a local person and 99.99% to the same. But can you still call it as a wholly owned subsidiary because one share is still being held by somebody
Yeah,
else?
so that is the exact point here. We are required to file a beneficiary owner forms, which is basically a MGT 6 form, where 2 shareholders are going to be there, 99.99%, and this one single shareholder will only be a registered owner for the purposes of law, but the beneficiary is the ultimate parent. So easiest thing to do here is first, and another practical issue you will face here is a proxy is not allowed for quorum when it is a shareholders meeting. If you have a foreign national as that single shareholder, he has to be present in India for the AGM. That becomes quite a challenge. And to avoid paper meetings and to actually educate the client, we stress on this point that the single shareholder makes sure that he is somebody who is living in India so that he is able to attend your AGM. That way it is important, and file these forms. Many of them do not file these forms, sir. So if we file these forms, then the parent only is going to receive the 100% dividend in case you want to do paying of dividends or you want to repatriate capital when you are closing down the company. Practically today we are facing these issues where India companies are closing, but I don't have the RBI clearance for the first subscription that they got to India. And when I'm trying to pay them dividend, bank is not allowing me to pay dividend for this one person because they cannot find this beneficial owner forms and those documents. So to explain to a client that this one share does not belong to him, we have to make sure that we do the beneficial owner forms filing with the ROC.
What about the subscription, the subscription sheet to the memorandum? You put the name of that individual or you put the name of the company and say that the nominee will be the individual? How do you report that?
We put the name of the parent company as 9,999 shares and that single shareholder has to be put. So in the subscription there is no confusion. That is how you need to do. But when you get the money from the parent company, you can get that entire lakh of rupees, single FIRC, and when you are submitting everything to the RBI, give your beneficial owner forms also to establish the relationship between everything. So signature of subscribers, make sure that if it's an individual, you take his signatures. If it's a body corporate, the memorandum and articles of association shall be signed by the director, officer or employee of the body corporate, duly authorized in this behalf by resolution of the board of directors of the body corporate. So you cannot have somebody who is not an employee of the parent company sign the board resolution. So he has to be an employee of that parent company. Only he is authorized to sign that board resolution. I've had instances where they have signed somebody through a local person only, and then later we have figured out he is not an authorized person to sign it at all. So we need to educate the
The
client.
board resolution has to be notarized there.
The board resolution has to be certified. So apostille requirement under law is not there, but practically they are actually insisting on us to get the apostille done. So I have some points on that apostille which we commonly face. So a foreign national residing outside India. Here is where we have to be very knowledgeable when a client asks us. So if we are a part of a Commonwealth nation, who is a Commonwealth nation? The British rule, where the Commonwealth nation, for them it is simple and easy because they frame the law here. They are only suggesting a notary to be done. The Commonwealth countries are required to do a notary, shall be notarized by a notary in the part of the Commonwealth. Who other than a Commonwealth is there? The Hague Apostille Convention nations. Who are your Hague Apostille Convention nations? Your USA, your Sweden, your Denmark. These companies are your Hague Apostille Convention nations. In this case, what happens is his signature and address on the memorandum and articles of association and his proof of identity documents shall be notarized before the notary of the country of his origin and be duly apostilled in accordance with the Hague Convention. So not only are they required to notarize, they are also required to apostille the documents. This that way is very crucial, and they'll ask me what do you mean by an apostille. Most of them would be hearing this term for the first time. So you have to go to the Indian embassy in that country and get an authentication done. The whole idea, and I think one important point also we'll have to tell the client is to get these documents translated, because when a Chinese company comes to me, he gives his Chinese documents in details. See, you asked me to notarize an apostille, I have done that, but I have sometimes forgotten to tell him that I need a translated English version. So in our checklist itself, make sure to tell that you have that. The idea behind this whole apostille and notary is that because see, we do not understand the documents of the foreign countries, and we cannot be made liable if some wrong declaration is given. So instead what we are telling, get these apostille and notarization, get these authenticated by the foreign companies itself. So our headache or our liability to that extent gets minimized. Other than your Hague Apostille and other than your Commonwealth nations, what are they required to do? So they are required to get a notary of such country, and such document shall be authenticated by a diplomatic or a consular office empowered on this behalf, or where there is no such officer by any of the officials mentioned in section 6 of the Commissioner of Oaths Act. I think this is where most of your Chinese companies will come under. For me to get a notary and actually authenticated documents from a China company takes 3 months. And without exaggeration, I can tell you, last November I started incorporation of a company for a client, and August 23rd this year I managed to finish the incorporation, because in their country it's a big deal for them to get all the documents authenticated and notarized. They are a manufacturing entity, and sadly October 1st government introduced a rule telling for your manufacturing entities 15% income tax they are going to give. So now I have got into the second headache again of incorporating another company for them. So I really feel sad. So what I have done, of course I don't know, when they brought this income tax law, they should have probably told that whoever is getting money into the country for setting up operations post October, instead of fixing a date on incorporation, they should have told when you are setting up operation, this is what they should have done. So what I have done, I have written to the PMO office. So there is a channel where we as public can write to the PMO office, where we can give them a detailed history about what we did, what are the pain points that I faced, and practically today what is my scenario, and where the company has still actually factually not been born in terms of operations. So please give and try and change this exemption notification is what we have written. So we have to wait and see whether some changes on that will happen or not. Visited in India and intended to incorporate a company, this is easier. A person who is coming to India and a foreign national is right in front of you when you are incorporating the company, the headache of notary, apostille, everything is done away with. It's actually quite surprising, but people are willing to spend that amount of money on air travel and spend their time and come here, do all the formalities that are required and go back, as opposed to getting the notary and apostille. I hear that it's a very expensive process, it's a time consuming process, but still there is no easier way, because today we are talking of incorporating companies by tens and thousands in months. So it's not just one company or two companies that we are supposed to look into. Several thousands of companies are coming to India and incorporating. So that's why this law is a bit stringent in that front.
It's only to become a shareholder and a shareholder and a director also.
Shareholder or a director or both, all of the documents of both of them needs to be apostilled and notarized.
Money has to come from overseas. The subscription where he does it everything in India, the subscription has to flow from.
Subscription can still come because RBI, whatever documents you are filing there, you don't have worry on the apostille and notary. There you do away with that. And there is one more way of setting up a company, which we have done so often, where we find local people, local directors, local nationals, set up the company with them. That is much faster. 5 to 7 days you have the company. By that time you have this company, you go ahead with getting a DSC for that director, and by getting his DIN the day he wants to be appointed into the company, first transfer the directorship of the company to that person. Then secondly, the share transfer, that can happen over a period of 60 days, because either you do your FCGPR process or the FCTRS process, still the whole thing takes about 60 days, 30 to 60 days. So you can follow that route, sir. And make sure that you educate the client, so you cannot reduce your fees here, where you have given them an alternative. Because still for you to transfer the company to him, it takes a lot of time. So many people have liked this idea, they have gone ahead. But my worry is when the name is not unique.
FCTRS valuation.
FCTRS valuation, still you can do it at 10 rupees. There is no worry at all. Like how you do for initial subscription shares, there is an RBI guideline where 10 rupees face value itself you can cap, and a single page certificate of a chartered accountant is required, you can go ahead with that. Same thing will hold good for FCTRS also. So where I was coming to, okay, I missed some thought.
No, in nutshell, for a foreign national, what are the documents that's required now?
For a foreign national, in nutshell, what is required? His certificate of incorporation of the parent company, that has to be apostilled and notarized. The board resolution of the parent company has to be certified. Then the address proof of the parent company has to be given. These three things
Is an
mandatory.
individual?
If he is an individual, then his address proof, ID proof documents have to be apostilled and notarized. So I have had instances where they have asked me to apostille and notarize a DIR2 also, which is not required under law. I have fought. At the third time of resubmission, even though only 2 resubmissions are allowed, they have allowed my documents to go through.
Only the address proof has to be done.
Address proof, ID proof. Basically your passport and your driving license. And make sure to get a recent utility bill also. Even though your driving license is there, make sure to get the recent utility bill. Without a recent utility bill, do not move ahead.
Now, in case, suppose the company is already there, like most of the venture capital, what is happening? The company is local, it's already incorporated, but they take foreign nationals to invest in. So basically, there will be a share transfer, what is happening. So, in that case also, the apostille is required.
No. When it's a share transfer, no apostille is required at all. That is straight away, you don't have to worry on that. But you need to do a stamping here, where what happens is your SH4 comes from there, which is signed, and you get it here, and then you do the stamping, and then you send back the
Because I
SH4.
have a client, okay, I am not taking care of that part of it, I am doing the tax part of that client. So he has become a shareholder in a private company, he is a foreign national. Okay, so he just showed me one agreement like that is there, that's all is what is done. And I don't think he has given any other.
So either a share certificate or a share certificate with a share transfer form, which is your SH4, these things are proof that he holds the shares.
So beginning itself, we incorporate a company at a
Because there are a
demat.
lot of foreign nationals which are doing this and they are not at all aware about what is
Exactly.
required. And they are individuals, they are not even body corporates. So since they have money and they prefer to invest in their home country, they are actually NRIs, not foreign nationals.
Got
I
it.
would say. So that is there.
So share certificate, share transfer form, and also make sure that they have the RBI approval for them getting the money here. Because RBI approval will come in the form of a unique number, which is basically your FCGPR and some identification is given. With that approval, those 3 they need to keep, because tomorrow when they have to
But
repatriate
if it
money,
is an automatic, like where the RBI approval not required, those investments.
then you cannot repatriate the money, and any money that you get here will have to sit here. You do away with the RBI reporting. So just a share certificate and share transfer form.
Is it a prior approval or a post approval?
Most of, so it depends on the sector in which you are investing. So most of these technology companies are all, once you file, you go and get an approval.
Now, if I have a demat,
Huh?
if I demat which has the meaning itself,
Huh?
we require an SH4.
So share transfer stamping is not there when it's a demat. So if you no, when you are doing a demat, then no required of a share transfer. So next comes your registered office. Registered office, well, I already told you earlier also. Your registered office need to have an NOC and a utility bill. INC 22 you need to file. So important point here is, there is a company which got incorporated in 2017 and that company wants to close down their operations. So they came to me telling 2 years I have not filed the incorporation, I have not filed the annual returns, you close the company for me. when I tried filing the annual forms, this INC 22 error came up. When I went back to the law, if I see section 10A under the law, it says if a company has not filed its registered office address within 30 days and has not filed form 20A, whenever that form 20A was introduced, the registrar can actually strike off the company. That is, he can remove the name of the company from the registrar. So that way it is a very, very critical compliance requirement which we are supposed to do for our client and not end up missing this compliance.
Virtual office is fine. Virtual office.
Virtual office today is still happening, sir, and they give us a service agreement. Service agreement will go through easily with the ROC, I have no problem. But I am facing authorities issue with your PT office, with your shops office, with your GST office. They don't understand virtual office. So, service agreement to a certain extent GST authorities have also approved. But today your GST authorities are visiting, your PT officers are also doing a surprise visit. There you will face some bit of a concern. Of course, we all know that INC 22A fiasco, we had the address of the company, the photo, everything has to be taken. Make sure your name board has the GST because there is a penalty of 50,000 without your GST number. So those sort of things we are only required to educate a client straight away. So as I told you in the first package of incorporation, when a company is incorporated, you deliver a nice kit to him, you tell him, this is your certificate of incorporation, this is how you are supposed to have a name board, this is how your share certificate looks, this is what your seals are, then those sort of things you clearly give a 12-13 pointer. So I have had companies where when I incorporated, they forward the marketing mails and the advertising mails that they get from other consultancy firms. There they make such a neat mail, give them 20 points on these all things we will do for you. So that's when I woke up. I said, oh, I have to also make sure that I communicate to my client really well. So today we are learning as we do the process.
I understood this and bogus, whereas it goes to the,
Yeah.
that is complete, but it goes to
True. So what sir is saying is a bogus kit goes to a client where the client calls me, somebody is asking me to pay 2,000 rupees, can I take that parcel? It has come in the name of the company. And I've always told, please do not take it. They think it is the government sending you some documents, but today the government does not send anything to you by a physical copy. So that way we also need to be aware, and the 2,000 rupees please don't pay. On one instance, one of them paid also and they opened it, it's actually some nonsense material, some postage books, something like that was there in that packet.
It was small document. In the case of foreign subsidiary, so signed MOA has to be attached, it's price 32.
So in the case of a foreign subsidiary, EMOA, EOA has to be additional attachments. Yes.
But he is telling it's not required to be attached. We got a mail from, he's telling, please refer the Spice 32 instruction kit for foreign subsidiary. Linking, filling of EMOA and EOA is not required to provide physical MOA and EOA as attachment with Spice 32.
So what you are telling is for a foreign national, EMOA and EOA is not required. For an Indian national, for him, regular MOA and EOA with the signature sheet is required. But for a regular one, the Word document still fixing and attaching is still there.
So in the case of foreign subsidiary, there is no need of attaching signed physical MOA.
Correct.
Not required.
Not required. So in the case of subscribers capital, as I told you, capital to be remitted within 180 days and we have to remit file form INC 28. Make sure that you take a bank declaration, a bank statement, take a declaration from the client, take a bank statement also from the client. Don't go by his words and certify a form and give it to him. So that way this is very important. Prepare a proper declaration and file it.
When did this INC 30 start? November 2018.
Sometime last year, yes. Before that companies you don't need to do. After November 2018 you are required to file this.
Ma'am, there is no bank account, no? You not opened a bank account.
Within 6 months not opened a bank account where you are allowed under subject to income tax provisions to take money in cash as share capital. You can't. So then there is a violation. So on when share capital is not received, I don't think there is a window. Your company becomes, so the registrar can remove the name.
Or where to file it? File.
You have to go for compounding. You have to go for compounding and tell them it was not an intentional error, and then the registrar can choose to let your company be.
Close the company, start another company.
So leave it and then close it and then.
When LLP is converted into a company, then what about the capital of the LLP will be introduced as a capital here? then that form is subject to be filed.
So when an LLP is converted to a company, what happens to the capital? I am not too sure. Maybe Form SH7 has to be filed or something. I am not really aware of it.
No, how many days do we get once the company is incorporated, they need to bring in the share capital, right? So there is, till today, there is no clarity on
Within how many days the money should come? It only says that you have to issue the share certificate within 60 days. But within 60 days of when?
Yeah, within 60 days of the incorporation of the company only, but you have 180 days. So stamping law says 60 days, your 180 days law is there in the Companies Act. Earlier law, if you remember, it was 60 days under the Companies Act, where FEMA said 180. So that dichotomy was there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm keeping FEMA aside. Under the Companies Act, I couldn't find any particular section that says that after the company is incorporated, the money has to come within 60 days. It only talks about share certificate being issued.
So 180 days only is there. It's not 60 days. 60 days is not there. 180 days is there under the law.
But then, the share certificates have to be issued within 60 days. So technically, you only get 60 days. Right?
Yeah, that is right. So as I told you, there is a dichotomy there.
Capital after getting money only 60 days for selling it.
But your subscription shares is as good as...
180 days. After getting that money only we issue shares.
No, but what happens is in the case of being a subscriber to the memorandum, you are a shareholder the day the company is incorporated. Unlike...
Money has to come within 180 days.
But sir is saying share certificate we should issue within 60 days. No, that is there under the share certificate provision, section 55 or something, but I am not sure. But that provision of within 60 days you need to issue the share certificate is there under the Companies Act.
But in that time, how to open a bank account? Bankers will insist for that certificate.
Bankers will not insist for share certificate.
No, not share certificate, that form that is to be filed.
Banker, so we have to provisionally give it to him. The banker will not give me his account number and IFSC code unless, so when I have to remit the money, he gives me those details and then I move ahead.
Bankers will permit us to open the account also.
No sir, we have to open, only then we will get the bank account number, transfer the money and then we have to submit the INC 28 proof also to the bank. So important points, and in the last 5 minutes of my presentation, so please bear with me. I know the caterer really well. I have told him, sir, unless I walk out, please don't give lunch to anybody. So do not copy paste signatures, important. So I have seen articles copy paste signatures because he has not got signatures signed really. Defective form, file again. So cases of defective forms are there. Proof documents visibility, make sure it is clean. Size of the form should not exceed 6 MB. For foreign nationals, MOA and AOA is a Word file with signatures from subscribers and witnesses. So this is what you were asking that time. 2 chances of resubmission is available, but sometimes a 3rd chance also has been given where they physically peruse, they really understand that this is the case. Like the China company I was talking to you about, that practically they gave me 3rd chance of resubmission until I could prove a lot of things to them. Then there is this entrenchment clause, so to protect a client, will give him some supermajority rights, some rights, you can actually educate a client and get the entrenchment clauses. After all this, if your COI is found to be in order, you will be given the incorporation certificate. Important point is there under the provision in the law itself. It says all papers of incorporation originally filed shall be retained till dissolution. I was not aware of this point until I was reading for this session where when we incorporated, all the papers used to be in our office. Then we used to follow up with the client to pick up those papers. He would never pick up. Since we had scanned and we are a paperless office, we would throw away the originals. So now I am realizing that I am supposed to keep this original incorporation documents till the end of my time. There is a complaints resolution, very quick, very efficient they are. You can register your complaint or send an email to this ID or call the help desk, and you can track the status often on your MCA help desk screen itself, and within 30 minutes, if your challan is not generated, wait for 48 hours and then see whether it is resolved or not. So very recent instance what I did not get the challan, I thought it is not paid and I went ahead and did again, but then one got approved and another came as a resubmission. So make sure that you will get the challan. So one of the cases in the Bangalore tribunal was a person who incorporated the company, they actually had given some fraudulent information at the time of incorporation. So they could actually remove the name. So it's not that once a company is born you can rest at peace, but none of us would do the fraud, but there is such a case where as a professional also I am supposed to exercise due care in taking all the documents. So conclusion is full importance should be given. So because see incorporating like a company is like today God also needs positioning. Your Tirupati God, your Ganesha God, all gods are positioned really differently, like the rich and the famous gods. How they are positioned is how they will get the money into their movies. So today how we position our incorporation package to a client, we can make sure that we charge them a good amount of money. Foreign incorporation is where some of us tend to not have the practical experience, but it's very simple and easy. We learned that today. And umbrella services. So as I was telling you, package your services and give all the services to a client. Now I have a small activity which actually is going to increase your appetite for your lunch. So what I request you to do is take your left hand up. Please play along with me. It will just take 2 minutes of your time. Play. So when we incorporated, probably all of us as professionals, the noise we could make was, or the difference we could make was, let's start with our one finger. So the noise is still a little small, and then probably the second year or 5 years post our incorporation, we all became knowledgeable, and so with 2 fingers let's tap. So I think most of you are getting to what I am thinking. Then to the third one is a little more noise, quite easier. So we as one professional, 2 partners, 3 partners, we can make a lot of difference. 4 is yes, 4 more, and 5 is thank you. So I end it. Thank you for being a wonderful and a patient audience. Real thank you.
Friends, you agree with me, we had a fabulous session. Sri Lakshmi shared all her personal experience and made the session very, very interesting. And it's an outstanding presentation, Sri Lakshmi. Please thank her with a round of applause. She shared her precious time and valuable knowledge with us. Let us present a memento to her as a token of appreciation. May I request Parmeshwar to come forward and do the honor. Please thank Sri Lakshmi with a round of applause. Thank you, Parmeshwar sir. Let us break for lunch and reassemble in next 45 minutes.